Good morning. I now call to order today's meeting of the Board of Supervisors for the University of Louisiana System. Ms. Carroll, would you please call the roll?
Here. Here.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. At this time, we will observe a moment of silence in remembrance of Dr. Joe Savoy's beloved wife, Ms. Gail Heinbach Savoy. Thank you. We extend our condolences to Dr. Savoy and his family, and we will continue to keep you in our thoughts and prayers. At this time, Mr. Romero, would you please lead us in the invocation as we begin today's business?
Yes, Madam Chair, if we could please stand. Heavenly Father, we ask that you grant us wisdom as you guide us in our deliberations today. Bless our staff, friends, students, and educators, and fill them with the wisdom and blessings that you provide us. You're our source of all wisdom and knowledge. Bless those who teach and those who seek to learn. Grant that throughout our academic seasons, they may devote themselves to their studies and share what they have learned from others. In the gospel, you enjoined upon us the mandate of serving one another. Grant that we may unceasingly work together to fulfill that duty. For this we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Romero. May I now have a motion and a second to dispense with committee deliberations and to meet as a committee of the whole?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Donahoe, second by Mr. Robinson. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. Also, I would like to advise that if any member of the audience would like to make a public comment on an agenda item, please use the comment cards located on the table in the back and give to a staff member. This morning, we have the pleasure of welcoming our new student board member, Mr. Ethan Estes, whom was recently elected to this position. Brandon DeQueer, would you please administer the oath of office to him at this time? Ethan, yeah. Congratulations, Mr. Estes. I have appointed Ethan to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, Executive, Finance, Grievance, and Legislation Committees. We look forward to your service during this coming year. Would you like to make any comments?
Thank you, Chair Pierre. I appreciate it. Happy to be here and happy to serve. Looking forward to creating a better system for our higher ed institutions. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Ethan. At this time, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our April board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Clark and second by Ms. Donahoe. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion stands approved. Again, we are meeting as a committee of the whole, and everyone can vote on all items. Each committee chair will conduct the business of that particular committee. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll start with the Grievance Committee. Ms. Donahoe, would you please give us the report from the Grievance Committee?
Yes, thank you. The Grievance Committee met earlier, and after careful review of the process used by the University of New Orleans, the committee recommended that the grievance filed by Ms. Weed be denied. As chair, I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendation of this committee.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Ms. Russell. That's okay. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion stands. We'll move then into the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Dr. Clark, would you please address those items?
Certainly, we have 6 items on the Academic and Student Affairs Committee agenda today. 5 of these items will require approval, and then 1 is an update that does not require the approval. Dr. Janine Khan, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, is going to provide the report. So Dr. Khan.
Yes, good morning Supervisor Clark, Chair Pierre, President Henderson, and members of the board and those in the audience. We do have 5 action items for your consideration and 1 informational item, and I'll go ahead and move forward with these at this time. Agenda item F1 is a request from Grambling State University to enter into a student exchange program with the Management College of National Defense University located in the Republic of China. This proposed partnership will allow for the exchange of ROTC students between the 2 institutions. Agenda item F2 is a request from Nicholls State University to award an honorary doctorate of humane letters to Mr. Henry J. Lafont Jr. The university would like to recognize their alumnus for his exemplary service and philanthropic endeavors to Nicholls as well as to Lafourche Parish. Agenda items F3 and F4 pertain to the University of Louisiana at Monroe. F3 is a request to enter into 2 memoranda of understanding with Louisiana Delta Community College. The proposed MOUs are public statements to the community that ULM and Louisiana Delta will partner on areas of critical need such as healthcare, education, and drones. And F5 is a request for approval of the university's 2022 and 2027 strategic plan. President Barry is with us today, and he'll provide you with a brief summary of the process that the university has gone through. Dr. Barry?
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Good morning, Chair Pierre, Dr. Henderson, board members. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today to talk about our new strategic plan, our new vision, our new mission statement. As many of us know, the process itself sometimes is more important than the words that end up on a piece of paper. We were very fortunate to have a very broad-based process with inclusion of faculty, staff, our community partners, our alumni from around the world to help chart a new course for ULM. We actually looked at a lot of demographics, a lot of statistics. One of the major sources of that data was the Board of Regents Prosperity Index. If you look at that index and you look at the major categories, unfortunately, our region scores dead last in every one of them except 1. And in that one, we're second to last. So through our process of open forums, open discussions, a lot of committee meetings, we decided that it was time for ULM to own who we are, where we are, and what we must do to raise our region up, to create opportunities for everyone. So I'm here today to ask you for approval to change our vision statement, which very rarely happens, to change our mission statement, which very rarely happens with organizations. We have a very good vision statement. It says that we'll be a top 200 national research institution focusing on health sciences. But when you consider the data, especially the Prosperity Index, we need to do more than that. We need to create an environment of true inclusion, equality, and opportunity for all. We view our vision as an internal statement. We view our vision as our moral compass. It's what is going to direct our discussions on campus. It's going to inform our decisions. It's going to be our internal motivation and inspiration. So we want to move away from becoming a national 200 research institution, which, by the way, we're going to do anyhow. That's not going to drive our decisions anymore. Bringing true opportunity for people in our region is going to drive our efforts. We also have a fairly good mission statement. It said, we seek students who value our programs and we transform their lives. Transforming lives is what we're all about. Changing lives is what we're all about. But seeking students who find value in our programs seemed a little exclusive to us. We need to be much more inclusive. We know that students that come to our door most of the time don't know what they want to do. They haven't really looked at their strengths and weaknesses. They haven't seen the opportunities that are available to them with our broad array of programs. So we want to move away from seeking students who find value. We want to be a university that is welcoming to all. We want to create opportunities for students. So we want to serve Northeast Louisiana and beyond and create a transformative education that essentially allows every one of our students to become the best versions of themselves. This was kind of a bottom-up process for us. So this was not Ron Berry saying, this is what we're going to do. And that's why I said the process is more important than the words on the paper, because we had broad participation. We created lots of themes based on all that input from around the campus and around the country. And we created committees around those themes, and those themes became what we know will help us understand our success. And we call those our pillars of excellence, our pillars of success. And the first one, of course, is student success. The next one is faculty and staff, wellness and distinction. We also know we're not naive. We can't do this alone. We have to have a lot of partners. So community engagement is extremely important. The financial operations of our university is extremely important. And finally, something very unique. And Supervisor Robinson, you've brought this up before in previous meetings. We're kind of unique in that we put athletics as a major pillar of our success. We've got to make it work. We've got to make it financially sustainable. We've got to figure out how to be winners on and off the field and do it within our budget. So athletics is identified as one of our strategic pillars of success. Our people across campus are now viewing this. They're creating their own strategic plans, and athletics is the first one we started with to make sure they are in alignment with this strategic plan so that we can ensure that we are truly changing lives in our region and making our university the place to go when people want to become more than they ever dreamed possible. So that's who we want to be. That's our vision and where we see ourselves when we celebrate our centennial celebration. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Dr. Berry, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I commend you and certainly the entirety of the community involvement and the thought that's gone into this. You identified at least 4 areas that you've articulated here this morning. I'm curious, did you establish and set specific goals that you will be reaching? And just, can you give me an example, say under student success, what you are expecting to achieve?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. If you look in the strategic plan, there are specific goals for retention, first-time freshman retention, graduation rates. We also have a goal in there that we need to look like the region we serve. So we need to do a better job of recruiting underrepresented students, and we know who that is in our region. So we've got special programs being developed to do that. We also know that our region challenges with educational attainment. Part of our strategic plan in action is earlier this year, we created a reading program. We had over 2,500 third graders come to our campus, and we wrote our own book. We presented that book to them. We read to them on campus. We toured campus with them. It was a book about hope, about inspiration, about a better life. And in the front of that book, it tells them, it rewards them, it acknowledges these group of third graders as our centennial scholars. It says they will be our freshman class when we turn 100 years old. Also on that page is a $500 scholarship for every single one of those students. Those students each received a medallion that gets them in free and anything going on campus. We have goals for those kids. We have a program that we put in place that follows them their fourth grade year, their fifth grade, their sixth grade year. And we have numbers that we want to make sure we meet, that we retain those kids and we see a certain number of them on campus as our centennial scholars. A strategic plan can't be completely comprehensive. It's just guidelines that are going to drive our decision, our thoughts, gives us ways to evaluate our future challenges and opportunities. But yes, there are some in here, but the most critical goals occur at the unit level. So our Student Success Center will have their own strategic plan with very specific metrics for very specific groups of students. We want to improve our graduation rate. We want to improve our retention rate. We have to if we're going to be successful. So yes, sir, there are.
And again, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad that you are identifying and suggesting that inclusiveness and a diverse campus is expected. Certainly, I'm sure that you are including in this conversation, identifying and closing any what I would term equity gaps and reporting on those and making sure that we're all succeeding.
Absolutely. We have the benchmark data. We know that our underrepresented groups underperform by about 10%, retention, graduation. So we've got those numbers. We know we need to impact those numbers. We also know that in terms of the general population, our region is about 60% white. We're right at 62%. We've got some other areas that we need to work on, about a 10% increase in underrepresented groups.
Again, I'm all about athletics, but I'm much more about academic success of all of our students.
Absolutely. I agree
Okay.
completely. And by the way, our athletic programs had the highest GPA they've had in a long, long time.
Great. I do have a question that maybe to you, Dr. Henderson, and that is the request, if I heard you correctly, Dr. Berry, is that you want us to approve a new mission statement for you. But is that within our purview as the board? We ultimately make a recommendation and then it is the.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's actually a SACS accreditation requirement that our board has approved the mission statement of each institution. So yes, sir, it is within your purview.
Are there further questions of Dr. Berry? I have a question while you're sitting there not on this, but Dr. Khan mentioned that your memorandum of understanding with Delta Community College, it includes drones. And I see, can you just, this is just total curiosity on my part, what are you doing with drones?
Absolutely. So, we have the only drone academic program in the state. And one area is in manufacturing drones, repairing drones. So we're looking at our partner at Delta to add that component. And that would actually make a great transition for students who understand how to build drones, design drones, and then moving into our program, which is really applying them to teaching kids how to fly, how to pass the national certification exams, and also, maybe even more importantly, to analyze the data that is collected by the drones.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, President Barry. We'll go ahead with the last agenda action item on the agenda. F5 is a request to revise board rule regarding admission to graduate study. Currently, our bylaw regarding admissions to a graduate program requires the applicant to hold a baccalaureate degree unless the program is designed to award a bachelor's degree in passing once the master's is conferred. This requirement precludes students enrolled in a graduate program in which only a specific set of prerequisite courses are required for admissions, such as ULM's PharmD program. And it does not allow for that student in the PharmD program to pursue other graduate work. And this was brought to us by ULM, and they have a lot of their PharmD students that want to pursue the MBA while they're enrolled as well. According to our bylaw, they wouldn't be able to do so because they only had to complete a certain set of prerequisites. And I hate to say only a certain set of requirements or prerequisites, but their degree completion at the undergraduate level is not required for admission into the PharmD program. And so this item was vetted with our system chief academic officers. We had a conversation with it, and the proposed language that's in your package and that you received was crafted with their help, and we're presenting that for approval today. And Supervisor Clark, those are the 5 action items that we have for your consideration at this moment.
All right, very good. If no one requires further clarification, I'd like to recommend approval of items F1 to F5. May I have a motion and a second? Supervisor Posada motions and Supervisor Romero provides the second. Are there any further questions, comments from the board? Any comments from the public at this point in time? All right, if not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion is approved. Dr. Khan, I believe we have a 6th item.
We
Can you-
do. I just wanted to provide the board members with an update on the academic planning process. If you recall, I touched upon this the last board meeting. The Board of Regents, normally you have letters of intent that come before you, which allows for a university, kind of like a hunting license, to move forward with pursuit of an undergraduate or graduate degree. And then later on, you have a full proposal that comes to you for review and for approval. The Board of Regents has changed the process some. Letters of intent are no longer required. What is required is academic planning. And so this was approved by their board a couple of months ago, in which each of our institutions, not just UL System, but across the state of Louisiana, all public institutions, have to create a 3-year plan, which identifies programs that they're interested in pursuing during that 3-year window. They also have to identify programs that are low completer, that are not viable, and either explain what they're doing to improve completion rates or taking the program or certificate off the books. And so what you're doing is looking at a review of the collection of inventory programs each institution already has, as well as projecting what programs you'd like to pursue. So right now, what we're doing is we've been asked is to kind of do a pilot that each institution has to prepare a year proposal, identifying what programs they'd like to pursue over the next year. These plans will be coming to you in August. So I wanted to just kind of give you a heads up of what's going to be coming forward, and then give you a little summary of the backdoor business. Our institutions will, in early July, present their draft plans to me for review. The CAOs within our system will meet, and each provost will discuss and present amongst themselves what their institution is planning on pursuing. So we can have internal conversations about potential partnerships and so on and so forth. Internally, we will finalize the documents, and those will be presented to you in August. And the plan, just as Dr. Barry sat in front of you today and went over what the university and what his goals and aspirations are in their strategic framework, we're going to have each president or provost from our 9 institutions sit before you and present their plan for the year for a few minutes, so you can ask questions of them and have a conversation about what their goals and objectives are from an academic planning standpoint. And so Dr. Norris will be handling that in August, because I will not be here in Baton Rouge for that meeting. And so we'll have a lot of analysis behind the doors. And so what you'll receive will be very well vetted and reviewed. And so hopefully you'll find it helpful throughout the process. Any questions about what I went over that I'm happy to answer at this time?
One question.
Yes, sir.
The process is obviously changing to some degree. Was there any change in terms of definitions for things like low completer?
No, we still go with the 5, 7, no, 2, 2.5 for STEM PhD, 7 for masters, and 10 for undergraduate. Yes.
Perfect.
And it's a nice process to have because you need to kind of take care of your own programs and your inventory. Not every program is going to hit that viability threshold because it might be the only one in the state and there's just not a huge need, but we still need to complete 1, 2, 3, however, number of students. But all of that remains the same, Supervisor Clark.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I really commend you and staff and others for the foresight in terms of bringing the CAOs together,
Oh,
talk
absolutely.
through things in advance, think through partnerships and so on. I think it sounds
Absolutely.
good. Look forward to August.
But we'll have a big meeting.
Not that you will not be here. I certainly will look forward to Claire presenting, but we will miss you. I know it's sad.
Well
She has
played,
to leave
well
us.
played, Supervisor Clark, well played.
She's looking forward to August as well.
I
I'm
know,
sure you.
I know.
I'll be traveling to Greece on personal trip, so sorry, but I'm not. Anyway, does anybody have any questions about any of the items? And otherwise, Supervisor Clark, that concludes all my items for today.
All right. Is there any other business to come before the committee at this time? Hearing nothing. The next items I believe to be considered are athletics. Is that
Correct. That is correct. Ms. Russell will address the items under the athletic committee.
We have 11 items on the athletic committee today. All are consent items. Mr. Bruce today will provide a brief overview of these items, but let it be noted that Supervisor Davison is recused from agenda items G1 and G2.
Bruce, Bruce, if you could, please turn that microphone on. It's a little different process.
All right.
Thank you. Yes.
Campuses are requesting approval of the following contracts amendments. First item is G1 from Louisiana Tech. Contract approval with Sonny Comby, head football coach. Item G2 from Louisiana Tech. Approval of contract with the following assistant football coaches. Jake Brown, co-offensive coordinator. Peter Hopkins, running backs coach. Scott Parr, co-offensive coordinator. Scott Power, defensive coordinator. Dave Schultz, head football performance coach. Dan Sharp, assistant head coach and then special teams. Paul Turner, safety coach. Casey Walker, defensive line coach. Marcus Walker, cornerbacks coach, and Nathan Young, offensive line coach. Item G3 is from McNeese. Approval of a contract with Gabrielle Moore, the head women's tennis coach. G4 and G5 are from Nichols, requesting a contract extension with Mary Dobie Plaisance, head women's basketball coach, and a contract with James Clont, head men's basketball coach. Items G6 to G10 come from Southeastern. Request approval of contracts of Ayla Gazzardo, head women's basketball coach, David Kiefer, head men's basketball coach, Nathan Gillespie, head women's soccer coach, Dustin Landry, assistant football coach, and William D'Ottavo, assistant football coach, defensive coordinator. And finally, item G11 is from University of Louisiana Lafayette, requesting amendments to the contracts of Christy Gray, head volleyball coach, and Luke Godin, head men's tennis coach. And those are all the items I have, Ms. Russell.
Thank you. These agenda items have been reviewed by staff and are recommended for approval. If any member has a question or wishes to discuss this item this time. No one? If no one requires further clarification of the consent agenda items, may I have a motion and a second for approval of items G1 to G11.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Supervisor Donahoe. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Any other business at this time? If not, that will conclude the business of the athletic.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'll move to Facilities Planning Committee. Chair Busada will address the items under Facilities Planning.
Yeah, 7 items of planning committee that are all consent agenda. First, brief overview.
so much, Mr. Posada. Campuses are requesting approval of the following. First item is H1 Nichols. Want to use the proceeds from the sale of the Theodore Lewis building and property to fund scholarships in fiscal years 23 and 24. On April 23rd of 2020, the board approved a request from Nichols to sell the property in a building which was subsequently sold for approximately $2 million, and the funds are now on deposit with the institution. Nichols has experienced a reduction in enrollment due to lingering impact of the pandemic, as well as devastating impact of Hurricane Ida on the South Louisiana region. In accordance with policy procedure memorandum for immovable property and associated guidelines, Nichols now requests that they be allowed to use the full proceeds from the sale of property to fund scholarships offered by the institutions to students, both new recruits and returning students. Item H2 is also from Nichols. Enter into a lease agreement with the city of Orleans, which is a trustee of the Edward Wisner Donation Trust and associated parties for approximately 10 acres of land located in Lafourche Parish. Nichols and the lessor wish to renew the lease under modified terms and conditions as set forth in the new lease agreement. Nichols will continue to be responsible for maintenance and repairs to the property and would only make further improvements to the property at their discretion. No further remuneration for lease payments is required of Nichols under this revised lease. Nichols uses this lease property for scientific research and education related to the coastal area, as well as the coastal field station for other educational purposes. The lease term begins on July 1st, 2022, and will end on June 30th, 2037. Item H3 and H4 are from Northwestern, requesting approval to enter into a ground lease with the Demons Unlimited Foundations for interior renovations of Prather Coliseum. This project is anticipated to be about $138,000 and want to renovate approximately 2,400 square feet. The renovation will include painting, installation of flooring and weight equipment, and other related work. Item H4, enter into the ground from Northwestern. They want to do another ground lease for interior renovations to the athletic field house. This project cost us approximately $100,000, and they're going to renovate approximately 1,600 square feet. This renovation will include painting, installation of new restroom and shower fixtures, as well as flooring. Upon completion of both projects, the foundation will execute a donation to the university of the completed projects. The lease is expected to terminate on November 1st, 2022, or upon completion of the construction of the renovations. Item H5 is from Southeastern. Request to name the new addition to D. Vickers Hall, the Robin Roberts Broadcast Media Center. Robin Roberts is a 1983 graduate of Southeastern and one of the university's most notable alumni. She currently serves as the co-anchor for ABC's Good Morning America and is one of the most widely acclaimed broadcast journalists in America. Robin has been a tremendous treasure of Southeast and a true role model. She is one of the university's foremost advocates, an ambassador, and a generous contributor. In 2019, the board awarded her an honorary doctorate at Southeastern Spring Commencement. Item H6, University of Louisiana at Lafayette, to name the athletic trainer's office at the Donald Janice Mosing Student Athlete Performance Center in honor of the Halleck's Family Athletic Trainer's Office. And they want to name their room for linebackers the John Bordelon linebacker room. Both parties have made a significant pledge to benefit the Cajun Field Capital renovation project. And finally, item H7 comes from University of Louisiana at Monroe. They want to name their mock trial room the E. Orem Young Junior Courtroom in honor of Mr. Young, a longtime and significant supporter of ULM and the ULM mock trial team. Mr. Young is a graduate from the University of Louisiana at Monroe, and after he graduated from Brigham Young Law School, he returned to Northeast Louisiana, served as an assistant district attorney, and founded his own law firm, E. Orem Young LLC. Finally, in addition to his legal success and community service, he has been a consistent and significant supporter of ULM's mock trial team since its formation in 2014. And those are all the items, Mr. Posada.
All of these agenda items have been reviewed by the board, legal staff, and recommended. Of course, if any member has a question or wishes to discuss any of these items, please. Go ahead.
Question on the very first one, the H1, the request to fund scholarships. Dr. Klein, I think it's great. $1 million sounds wonderful. A little bit more information. Is it all to be expended? It says 2023. Will that all be 1 year? You're going to put it out and
No, it will be over a 2-year period.
okay. And any
It'd be over two fiscal years, approximately $1 million in each year.
excellent. And it says new and returning students. Are there any other parameters in terms of amount of the scholarships or expected number of students who will be done and who it actually administers? Is it the financial aid office? Is it individual departments?
Dr. Clune is here. Perhaps
Yeah,
he can expand on that.
yeah, great.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Terry Bro with Nicholls State University, Vice President for Finance and Administration. So Supervisor Clark, what we're talking about is this $1 million of funding that would be made available through the sale. It's going to be run through our scholarship program, very much like a regular scholarship would be. Any student eligible for that coming through our financial aid and admissions office would be eligible for those funds. On an annual basis, the university self-funds approximately $5 million in scholarships. This helps that $5 billion number in our operating budget.
It's extraordinary. Am I understanding it's a need-based then concept? You said it people who go to the financial aid office or is
So there are, including both the admissions group as well as the financial aid group, there is criteria. For example, valedictorians qualify for certain types of scholarships, other need-based and so forth. So it will be a broad range of students served by the funds. Yes, sir.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Comments from the public? No one has further clarification. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. No further business this time. Business on the Facility Planning Committee. Next is the finance.
Correct. Mr. Robinson will address the items under the Finance Committee.
Thank you. We have 5 items on the Finance Committee agenda this morning, 3 of which are consent items and 2 are for discussion. Mr. Meach and Mr. Gannett will provide an overview of the discussion items.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. So I-1 is Grambling State University's request.
Eddie, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. You got to bring that microphone real close. It's the desk microphones in this room are so
Okay,
insensitive.
is that better?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I-1 Grambling State University's request to amend the university's lease agreement with Barnes & Noble Booksellers LLC and implement the First Day Complete program. Grambling State University's request approval to amend its existing contract with Barnes & Noble, its contracted bookstore operator. The original contract was entered on July 1, 2019, and this first amendment would become effective on July 1, 2022. The amendment would add the First Day Complete program to the agreement. In order to expand the textbook affordability to students, Grambling State University would like to implement the First Day Complete program a Barnes and Noble Inclusive Access Program for courses beginning with the fall 2022 semester. The First Day Complete program would include course textbook costs with tuition and fees created, providing a considerable savings for students while retaining the academic freedom for faculty to choose the best materials for their courses. Course materials will be available to the students on the first day of class. The students' cost for required course materials would be $24 per credit hour per semester. Students would have the option of opting out of the program and securing materials on their own. If students do not opt out, they would be charged for the course materials. GSU, working with Barnes and Noble, will educate students about the First Day program. I2 is Louisiana Tech's request for approval to implement a distance education per credit hour tuition rate for the university's online programs. Act 426 of 2013 regular session grants authority for the board to impose tuition and fees for students enrolled in an academic degree program offered entirely through distance education. Louisiana Tech University requests board approval to assess students enrolled in its undergraduate online programs a tuition rate of $400 per credit hour, and to assess students enrolled in their graduate online programs a tuition rate of $475 per credit hour. The university compared its proposed rates to 12 other in-state and out-of-state online programs as of spring 2022. These program rates range from $130 to $400 per credit hour for undergraduate programs and $383 to $500 per credit hour for graduate programs. For Louisiana schools, the rates range from $275 to $400 for undergraduate and $475 to $500 for graduate programs.
Item H3 is from University of Louisiana System, requesting approval of the Board Operations and System University's fiscal year 2022-23 internal audit plans. These audit plans have been prepared by System and Campus Directors of the Internal Audit with input from campus presidents, other campus administrative personnel, system personnel, and others.
And this completes the consent agenda items, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Consent agenda item 1.1 and 1.3 are action items and do require action. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the items?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay,
On the first one, regarding the first day event, are students given a time period in which they have to respond to that, or is that just automatically on? How did they, what time frame did the students have to respond to whether they want to participate?
Well, students would have the opportunity to opt out of the program, and if they don't opt out, then they would automatically be charged.
I understand that. I'm looking for the time period which they have that option.
I don't have those specific dates, Ms. Donahoe, but maybe someone from.
Anyone from Grambling have them?
someone's coming up, I think.
This gentleman is going to tell us.
Yes, good afternoon. That date is going to be in conjunction with our census date when our bills are final. And when students have the opportunity to opt out during that period, they will not have any false refunds, if you will, based upon that charge.
So, no, I missed the first part of your statement. How long is this period?
This period is going to be throughout from now or whenever it's approved up until the census date, which is going to be September the 2nd.
Okay, and how long will they have been on campus by then?
They will have been on campus approximately 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
Supervisor Donahoe, the census date is, in most circumstances, is the 14th class day of a semester.
Great.
So have some time. And if you would, please identify yourself for the board, because they don't often get to see you.
I'm sorry, I'm Gavin Hams. I'm the Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management at Grambling State University.
The extraordinary Associate Vice President, I might add.
You're right. That's why you make the big dollar.
That's right. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you for your information.
Can I, before you leave,
Yeah.
just, you raise this question and it makes me think of it's a first day program. And yet the students have 14 days essentially to opt out. will they receive their books and their supplies that first day and then a week later say, maybe I don't want to, and then do they turn them back in? How does that work?
Yes, that is the case. If students feel as if that program is not the one for them, they do have the opportunity to opt out, but they will indeed have to return their books and choose an alternative method to purchase.
And the vast majority of students will make that decision before class starts. It's associated with the communications associated with orientation to the semester, to their fee bills and all those things. But that 14th day is a safety net for those students, because there are some that don't do things on a timely basis that allows them not to be caught off guard. That's some students that are affected.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question, but what is the alternative? They purchase the books themselves?
Yes, it gives the students the ability as consumers to be able to purchase books from anywhere or using any method in which they see fit.
Okay. Well, obviously, it's an opt-out program for a reason, because you want to have some plan, I guess, going into the semester as to what expectations are for students.
That is correct.
And members, it also provides some great benefits for financial aid packaging. It makes it easier for students, so that for cash flow for students, so that they're not having to go and front purchases for their books, when typically just finding cash for gas today can be a tremendous burden for students. It allows it to be part of their institutional billing, and it is a extraordinary service to the vast majority of students.
Yeah.
Convenience and cost savings.
No, sir, it's both. It's cost savings and cash flow impact. So it's a reduction in cost, but also a reduction in cash burden, in my opinion.
That's absolutely correct.
And also, just to note, it helps the professors too, because they have their
absolutely.
materials the first day of class, instead of, some kids might not get around to getting their books for a while.
Right.
So this gives them the opportunity to have them the first day of instruction.
And if I may add, this is a considerable cost savings, because on average, if you pay $24 per credit hour, that is a cost of approximately $300 to $400 per semester, as opposed to students perhaps having to pay $300 to $400 per book.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they own the book. This is not a rental, right?
It is a rental, but they do have a small fee to be able to keep it for however long they need.
Are there additional questions, further questions? Yes.
The question on item, is it I2? If I heard the dollar amounts and the comparisons that were being given, and I appreciate that very much, it seems that the $400 amount for the undergraduate puts it at the top of the tier, both for the comparative group in-state and out-of-state, as well as the Louisiana. Do we have a comparative amount for undergraduate online for our schools alone?
Some of the schools that they did research on were some of our schools from ULS schools. And they range of $275 at Nichols to $400 at ULM. So they're within that range, but on the high end, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate they're within the range. They're at the top of the range. They're right there at 400. And I guess what I'm trying to get at too is that our 9 schools, I'm just curious, what is our average rate for our 9 schools for online undergraduate?
I don't have the average, Dr. Clark, but I could get that to you.
Yeah, so most of our schools are in the $350 to $400 range.
That's what I'm trying
And
to.
the distinction between that and some of the other schools that are on the low end of the range really is about the cap on class sizes. Philosophically, our institutions typically cap online classes at no more than 25 students. For those institutions that are able to offer online classes in the $130 range, these are online classes that typically have 150 to 200 students in the class. From a pedagogical standpoint, or from a student success standpoint, our institutions have decided that's not a student success metric or practice that is conducive to students being successful. So one of the reasons why it is a more costly for us on a per student basis is because we limit the scale for our instructors. You can take an online class right now for almost for free in a MOOC with 95,000 of your closest friends, and 98% of students don't successfully complete the class. So we could charge less and have unsuccessful students, or we could have a scaled model that is still very inexpensive compared to a lot of of competitors, especially in the for-profit range. And I think it's a model that is proven to work a little bit better.
Please,
Ms. Donahue has a question or comment.
I took note that you were going to send Dr. Clark this information, but I'd like to see it too. Perhaps if you just have it ready for the board for our next meeting in August,
Yes, ma'am.
so that we would, be able to see. I'm interested in all 9 universities. I want to know what they're, not that I don't think Tech is well positioned to charge this. I just want to be sure that all of our students,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to understand it.
We'll prepare something for you.
Thank you.
Dr. Clark?
no, I was just, I was reacting to the suggestion that we compare ourselves to privates and feel good about it.
No, not at all.
And because we're less than what they offer. And I would counter that I think that we need to be very careful about online education offerings. I think we need to be judicious. I don't have a problem with Tech's ask. I really don't. I think they obviously have done their calculations. They've worked it out, and it seems to make sense. Moving forward, I think with the pandemic and with this hybrid and with our, the way that delivery is going, I think that just paying attention to where things will head in the future and how we're going to set ourselves up, not only in terms of competitiveness, but more importantly for student access and affordability. I don't want to price us out. I don't want to keep people out just because, 75% of our courses now can be online, and this is a hefty price. So I just want to be cautious as we approve these things forward.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or any other item, any other material that someone would want to have discussed in this matter, regarding this matter? There being none, I'll accept the motion for approval. Mr. Romero moves. Is there a second?
Second. Davison.
Mr. Davidson, second. Without objection, that item is approved. We will now have the discussion items. Mr. Junay and Ms. McIntyre will provide a discussion of the discussion items. Discussion of discussion items. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robinson. Item H4, University of Louisiana System. Report on internal and external audit activity for the period of April 18th through June 19th, and the annual assertions that the auditors have to make to the board. Earlier this week, each board member received a listing of internal and external reports completed by various auditors since our last meeting. Also included in that are audits that are currently in progress. And then the last page contains a follow-up timetable to ensure that recommendations made in prior reports are implemented. And each board meeting, in the June board meeting, our internal audit charter requires we make certain assertions to the board annually. Based on the responses, the following is provided, and these are all detailed in the material you were sent. But the internal audit activity conforms to standards. We have maintained our organizational independence. We have not experienced any interference related implications of doing our work. We have not come across any significant risk exposure or control issues that we need to bring to your attention. And finally, internal audit has implemented and maintains a quality assurance program that covers all aspects of the audit activity, and we continually monitor its effectiveness. This is a report only, and no action by the board is necessary.
Item I5 is the systems discussion of the fiscal year 22 third quarter financial reports and ongoing assurances. And we have provided copies of the reports that I'm going to discuss with you. So starting on page 1 is the operating budget versus actual report. And it's a comparison of budget to actual revenues and expenditures through the third quarter ending on March 31st, 2022. Campuses submit their quarterly financial reports to the system, and they provide explanations when revenues have not reached budget estimates and when expenditures have exceeded budget estimates. The following are explanations for budget versus actual variances. So for revenues, there were no statutorily dedicated revenues drawn down at this point as of the third quarter, but they are expected to be drawn down during the fourth quarter. Educational activities and state grant revenues were 58% of budget, and the timing of collection of these revenues varies based on grant reporting dates. Other revenues were 61% of budget. This includes insurance recoveries not yet received, an excess budget that is not needed at this time, and more revenues are expected in the fourth quarter. Then on page 2, we have the expenditures presented by function. Scholarships and fellowship expense were 103% of the budget, and this is normal and expected because almost all scholarships have been awarded and recorded for the year as of March 31st. Then on page 3, we have the expenditures presented by object. Operating services were 86% of budget. Campuses pay the Office of Risk Management in the first quarter each year for insurance coverage for the entire fiscal year. This is also related to an energy fee transfer to offset utilities, but it wasn't done until the fourth quarter this year. Other charges and interagency expenditures were 89% of budget, and this includes the scholarships, which have mostly been recorded as of March 31st, and it also includes transfers to the auxiliary fund. Library acquisitions were 90% of budget, and this is mostly because there were more library purchases during the fall this year than was expected, and also because of the timing of large subscription purchases. The next report is on page 4. This is a prior year to current year comparison of the operating activity through the third quarter. Campuses submit their quarterly financial reports to the system, and they provide explanations for any large or unusual variances. And the following are explanations for those variances. So still on page 4, the revenues, the increase in the general fund revenues of 42% is expected. There was more appropriations in fiscal year. There was an increase in appropriations from fiscal year 21. And some of this is making up for the lack of CARES funding this year. The 44% increase in other revenues is mainly due to an increase in indirect cost revenues. Then on the top of page 5, we have the expenses by function. The 57% increase in research expense is mostly caused by the timing of an adjustment made to reallocate salaries related to scholarly research as a research expense. The scholarships and fellowships expense increased by $8.9 million, mostly because in the prior year, some scholarships were charged to CARES funding as restricted, but this year they were charged to the operating fund. The operations and maintenance expense increased by 10%, mostly due to an overall increase in utilities and expenses related to the aftermath of Hurricane Ida that are expected to be reimbursed by ORM or FEMA. And then athletics expense increased because in the prior year, some of this was charged to CARES funding as restricted, but it was also charged to the operating fund in the current year. And still on page 5, but at the bottom, the expenditures presented by object. Travel increased by $2 million, mostly related to the COVID pandemic. And then other charges and interagency expense increased by $14 million, mainly because in fiscal year 21, these expenses were charged to the restricted fund and covered by the CARES funding, but for fiscal year 22, they're charged to the operating fund. So next we'll talk about the auxiliary and athletics operations on page 6. In their quarterly reports, the campuses also report on their auxiliary and athletic operations. And the report on page 6 includes the revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balances projected through the end of the fiscal year. Campuses expect approximately $244 million in revenues, $269 million in expenses, and $16 million in net transfers in, which results in an overall current year operating deficit of approximately $9 million and an ending positive fund balance of approximately $38 million. Then on page 7, we presented the athletic deficits. Although progress has been made by some campuses, most campuses continue to have deficits in athletics. The campuses presented in the athletic deficit schedule on page 7 are projecting athletic deficits through the end of the fiscal year. With increased tuition and fees in past years, athletic scholarship costs have increased significantly. Although scholarships are an expense to the athletic departments, a considerable portion of athletic scholarships do not leave the institutions. Athletic scholarships pay tuition, student housing, rents, meal charges, bookstore charges, and other fees to other departments. Campuses have updated their deficit reduction plans to include more rigorous fundraising efforts and a focus on reducing travel and operating expenses. With their quarterly reports, campuses provide certifications of certain assurances about their operations. They did not note any areas of immediate concern in their certifications, and these certifications and reports are available for review in the system office. And this is a report only, and no action by the board is necessary.
And this completes the discussion agenda items, Mr. Rollins.
I'm sorry.
This completes the
thank
discussion
you.
items.
Are there any questions regarding the presentation?
Yes, I have one. I'm assuming since tech is not listed in the deficit, they have no deficits. Maybe when y'all get that new football coach, right, check. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Recognizing none, that concludes the business of the Finance Committee, and I yield back to the president.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. At this time, Ms. Donahoe will chair the Personnel Committee.
We have 5 items on the Personnel Committee agenda today that are being presented on the consent agenda. Ms. Keisha Neal will provide an overview of today's items. Ms. Neal?
Thank you, Mrs. Donahoe. Good afternoon, Chair Pierre, Dr. Henderson, and board members. Item J1 is Grambling State University's request for approval to appoint Dr. Edwin H. Litoff III as Vice President for Finance effective June 6, 2022. Item J2 is McNeese State University's request for approval to appoint Dr. Frederick M. Lemieux as Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs and Enrollment Management effective June 1st, 2022. Item J3 is Northwestern State University's request for approval to appoint Dr. Mary Edith Stacy as Dean of the College of Business and Technology effective July 1st, 2022. Item J4 is University of New Orleans request for approval to appoint Dr. Samuel Gladden as Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, Education, and Human Development effective July 18th, 2022. Item J5 is the University of New Orleans request for approval to appoint Dr. Lizette Chevalier as Dean of the Dr. Robert A. Savoy College of Engineering effective July 25th, 2022. Mrs. Donahoe, that concludes the items for consideration today.
Thank you, Keisha. These agenda items have been reviewed by staff and are recommended for approval. Of course, if any member of the board has a question or wishes to discuss them, please let me know at this time. Are there any questions or comments from the public? There is no discussion. I would ask for a motion to approve these. It was moved by Mr. Romero. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Clark, excuse me. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? At this time, if any of the presidents have some of these new faculty, or they may not be new to the faculty, but if they have anyone they would like to introduce, please come forward at this time. I see Dr. Jones from Northwestern is going to come introduce us to our new dean.
Good morning, and I'd like to take a minute to introduce you to Dr. Mary Edith Stacy. Dr. Stacy is no stranger to NSU. She graduated with a BS in accounting in 1991 from NSU and a master's of education in 1996, and she got her PhD from LSU with a concentration in vocational education. Dr. Kate Stacy currently teaches introductory and intermediate statistics at NSU in the College of Business. In addition to her teaching experience, she's held a couple of different positions at the institution. She was the Director of Enrollment Management, Director of Auxiliary Services, and the Coordinator of University Scholarships. Dr. Stacy is also the owner and manager of Russell and Mary Edith Stacy Farms, with more than 3,000 acres of traditional row crop property and livestock. I'm looking forward to working with Dr. Stacy, and she's joined here today by her husband, Russell, and her daughter, Kaylee, who are in the back. Dr. Stacy.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Can y'all hear me?
It may not be on me.
No, I'm not on.
I don't know,
Pull it
just get it
closer
closer
to you.
to you.
Really close.
Yeah.
Really close.
Usually I'm on the phone calling for the IT people at this point. Dr. Jones, thank you for that introduction. And I want to thank my family for joining us today. It's a quick drive down from Baton Rouge, not too hard, a lot easier during the day than in the night driving to LSU back before the days of true online learning. I'm very proud to be selected for this position. I always start off my introductory business statistics class that I tell them all I started at 3 years old in Warren Easton Hall, and then I ask them to guess my age. And some of them automatically pass there on the first day. So the various positions I've held at the university have given me insight to all sorts of different environments, which I think has prepared me for this academic leadership role. Also with Dr. Jones being the president, he and I are long-term friends and colleagues. Having that support will definitely lend a hand in us driving the success of the College of Business and Technology, along with Dr. Greg Hondel, who is our current provost. I look forward to working with both of them as we move our college forward post-pandemic. I want to say we're out of the pandemic, but I realize we're not. I just completed international travel to the South Pacific, and they are still kind of in the throes of it. So we've got a little ways to go. And I know we're way more open here, and our businesses are thriving a little bit more, even though we've got our little dicey economic environment at the moment, but we're going to push through it like we always have. So I want to thank you for confirming me for this position. And like I said, Dr. Jones and Dr. Hondel for their faith in me to allow me to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
If there are no other introductions, this concludes the business of the Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Romero. Thank you, Ms. Donahoe. Sorry. We'll now move down to our legislation committee. Sorry. Well, our legislation committee. Supervisor Russell, would you please give us a report from the legislation committee?
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I don't think your mic is on, that green button just. We started the 2022 regular session watching 65 instruments. That's a lot. 39 of those made it through the process. One has been vetoed and 13 are awaiting signature. Of course, the most important instruments we were watching were those dealing with the budget. Ultimately, we ended this regular session with an historic investment in our work. Overall, higher ed received $159 million. During the process, the legislature changed the original proposal for faculty pay raises to a 3% cost of living increase. Governor Edwards restored additional dollars with a line item veto, resulting in $11.6 million for faculty pay raises, allowing closer to a 4.5% increase for faculty. Some of the additional funding notes, our system received $8 million for hurricane recovery and stabilization for those campuses who've been impacted by storms. $4.5 million for our workday implementation, those three institutions who are getting a new ERP system. $500,000 for system research and development. All of higher ed received $50 million for deferred maintenance for our facilities. We impacted a line item for a $22 million supercomputer that is going to be housed in this building that our researchers will have access to from all over the state, can come here and use a supercomputer. I would also, like Mary Edith, I would need IT to figure that out. We also did remarkably well in the capital outlay bill with a total of $458 million associated with system projects. Now to some of the bills, I'm not going to go all 65. I'm just going to give you some of the highlights. SB 76 by Senator Fields. This ensures that our institutions provide transparency when offering grad and teaching assistantships. Institutions will now present offer letters with compensation and required fees to ensure graduate and teaching assistants fully understand their financial package. Dr. Henderson worked extraordinarily hard with Senator Fields throughout this session to get that bill in the right posture. I'm very proud of that. HB 980 by Representative Freeman. This is a bill that Dr. Caruso from Nichols brought the idea to us at the system conference that the state agencies have crisis leave pools, and she had the idea to expand the qualifying circumstances to include maternity, paternity, and care of parents. And so we worked with Representative Freeman to get that bill filed, and it passed and is awaiting the governor's signature. HB 185 by Representative Owen, our friends at FIRE, our free speech organization, organization partnered with Representative Owen to further strengthen our free expression laws here for our campuses. We also worked we visited a lot of retirement committees, which is we're not used to, but with shortage in teachers, that was a big thing this session. We wanted to make sure that when there's a shortage of nursing faculty, we would also have a provision to be able to hire retired nursing faculty. So we were able to do that through HB 1021 by Representative McFarland. You probably heard a lot about SCR 6, concurrent resolution by Senator Kathy to examine tenure. It creates a task force to study tenure. We worked with the author to get additional faculty representatives on the task force. Our faculty senate presidents will select a member among them to represent and serve on that task force to represent our system. Dr. Henderson will also be an active participant in the task force, and ultimately we believe the outcome will be a full endorsement for indeterminate tenure. There was a bill by Representative McKnight that deals with student disciplinary proceedings. We worked with the author to amend the bill to better fit our current disciplinary practices and significantly reduce the time available for appeals, as well as reduce potential damages that can be awarded. HB 546, Representative Mincy removed an entry praxis for teacher ed. So teachers going into teacher ed programs will not have to take that test any longer. There was a bill by Representative Marino that several teacher ed folks from our system worked with him that requires dyslexia education as a component of teacher education programs. Last year, we talked a lot about NIL, name, image, likeness for college athletics. Senator Connick had some amendments to his bills that allows more flexibility for student athletes for those NIL bills. Senator Mizell had the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which requires an athletic team or sporting event to be designated based upon the biological sex of the team members. Governor Edwards last year vetoed this bill, allowed it to become law this year without his signature. SB 371 by Senator Harris adds a checkbox to personal income tax returns to donate a portion of your return to the University of New Orleans and Southeastern. Representative Amity created a fund for the purpose of funding tuition exemptions and reductions of textbook costs for persons over age 55. Senator Foyle provided a bill to provide in-state tuition to veterans. That's something our institutions had in practice already, but this is just codified in law. And then HB 888 created a hunger-free campus designation opportunity at the Board of Regents to create hunger-free campuses. Next year, so that's kind of the bills. We are, I hate to already look forward to next year, but I'm already looking forward to next year, which there should be another good budget year for us to continue to work with members to prioritize higher education, which they surely did this year. And I want to thank y'all because I know many of you reached out to members who are in your circle to talk about our system, and that goes a long way. Of course, our presidents who also spend a lot of time with those members to ensure they understand the importance of our institutions to our regions. And then the governmental affairs folks I work with on the campus, we work very closely together and, that collaborate, and they're friendly to one another in the sense that they help each other in instruments that are important to the various institutions, which is really goes a long way in our push for systemness among our 9 institutions. So that was my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question on the item about the hunger-free campuses. Did they give us any money to help do that?
I don't believe they did.
Oh,
and-
goodness.
But hopefully we'll get that next year. That was something that the Louisiana Budget Project was working on. Or maybe the Board of Regents can find some money in their budget to
Okay.
fund it. But
Well, let's see if we can give them some, before we ask them to do these things, let's make sure they can.
there was
actually have some money to do
there
it.
was a companion element for that bill, like many bills this session, that we're creating a fund, and that fund has to be funded. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And they weren't asking for much either.
Supervisor Russell, if I could, there was a bill, Senator Milligan.
Oh, I forgot Doc's favorite bill. I'm sorry.
This was a bill that was brought by Homeland Security interests at the federal level, dealing with a strategic national security interest in protecting intellectual property and research. And there are a number of nefarious actors, state actors, that have national programs designed to actually steal intellectual capital from our institutions. A law passed in Florida last year that was the first in the nation of its type. Our bill was brought, it was patterned after the Florida bill. The author worked directly with us and some of our researchers from around the state, Ramu from Louisiana Tech, of course, Ramesh Kalaru from UL Lafayette. And we were able to make what I think are some great improvements in the Florida statute that protect academic freedom, that protect scholarship, that respect scholars, distinguishing scholars from nefarious state actors. And at the same time, achieving the same national security interest. In my opinion, it was a model for the way that academicians can work with legislators to affect good policy that not only protects Louisiana, but protects our nation. And Senator Milligan's example of accessibility and collaboration is one that's a model that's worth emulating. And lastly, I want to thank Kimmy Geisman. The amount of time and the amount of miles that you can walk between this building and the Capitol. I think whatever her step counter was, she exceeded whatever her goal was. When Kimmy accepted this role, in addition to her other roles, she had not done this work before. And I dare say, there's not a more effective advocate for higher education system than Kimmy Geisman. And it was a real joy to work through what I think is probably the most successful legislative session since we were formed in 1974. So thank you for that, Kim.
Thank you.
If I might just echo that comment, not only did the effort, the work, but the continued communication throughout the session as a board member, really, really appreciated the extra effort that you went to. So thanks.
Thank you.
for that.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board, from the public? If there's no other business at this time, this will conclude the business of the legislation committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Russell, and thank you, Cammie. At this time, we will move to our system president's report. Dr. Henderson, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, you were emailed campus personnel actions for review. The staff has reviewed all of these requests and recommends your approval. Madam Chair, we'll need a motion and a second to approve those.
May we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Davidson moves, Ms. Donahoe seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes.
Members, you may have noticed a new face walking around the room today taking pictures. This week, the staff welcomed Alyssa Coates to the team as our graphic designer and brand manager. As you remember, Jesse Gabor went to Philadelphia to work for Sotheby's Real Estate. And so we went to another demon, Alyssa Coates. I promise you, we still less than 50% of our staff are Northwestern graduates, just to keep it even. But we welcome Alyssa as our graphic designer and brand manager. The faculty that worked with her as a student at Northwestern could not have been more complimentary of her and investing, or excuse me, attesting to her capabilities here. She most recently led marketing communications for Benny's Car Wash. And Alyssa, if you would, please stand to be recognized. And members, we began the meeting with a moment of silence for Gail Savoy. And I know that Joe Savoy is buoyed by the outpouring of support from this board, from the community, certainly from the UL Lafayette family around this loss. And I thought it was appropriate just to remind you and the public of the vitally important role that spouses play in running our institutions. It's a role that sometimes gets overlooked. And Gail Savoy was a model of presidential spouse. I remember trying to have a number of conversations with her in the press box at a football game or a softball game. And you could only get 3 or 4 words in before she was yelling about the action on the field. Passionate about sports, passionate about students, passionate about service. She was an artist. She was a model. She will be missed. And I wanted to acknowledge that role, 1, for Gail, 2, for the spouses of our presidents, and encourage you to please keep Joe, the UL Lafayette family, and his family in your prayers. If you get a chance to look at the pictures and see Joe Savoy in coveralls and a Kappa Sigma shirt and cap with his beautiful spouse, you understand the partnership that they had, and she'll be sorely missed. Now, update on Title IX. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. I think that's 37 words that were acted into law 50 years ago today. Since that time, our system has reaped the benefit of not only complying, but fully embracing the will of that Congress. In fact, Northwestern State University 48 years ago was the first institution in the state of Louisiana to offer athletic scholarships to women. About 40 years ago this year, the first NCAA women's basketball tournament champions were crowned. I happened to see that team when they played Oral Roberts in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and watched Angela Turner and Pam Kelly and Janice Lawrence and Laurie Scott and a little point guard with these pigtails named Kim Mulkey. My dad said, "You need to come over here and watch basketball the way it was supposed to be played." That was, of course, was the Lady Texters in their second national championship, first one as the NCAA champion. And I think about the vision that it required to elevate a program to that level at Tech, from the president's office to certainly to Sonia Hogue and to Leon Barmore, who elevated women's sports to staggering heights. We've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go, but we're doing some amazing work, and that work is being led by a person that was recognized at a Board of Regents event earlier this month. It was an event honoring the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And of course, I'm talking about our own Erica Calais. She was recognized as being a champion for Title IX for the state of Louisiana. And I can't think of a more deserving individual. She remains steadfast in her work. She evaluates our policies and procedures. She gathers the right individuals to discuss issues of safety in order to make our university safer. We had even added safety and resilience to her title. We did all of this, and she did all this work while she was completing a doctoral program. So she is now Dr. Erica Calais, Title IX champion. She's going to come to the table now to talk a little bit about our Title IX efforts, including combating something you may have seen in the news. We've seen 4 or 5 instances in the last 6 months of high-achieving scholar athletes, female scholar athletes that have committed suicide across the country. Talk about how some things that we're going to do to address that on our campuses. She'll also introduce the incoming Student Advisory Council, who, along with our new student board member, Ethan Estes, will be a voice for our 92,000 students. Without further ado, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Good afternoon, Chair Pierre and board members and members of the audience. Title IX and power-based violence awareness and prevention continue to be a priority for our campuses. The system's Title IX coordinators, along with the campus presidents, have been doing an outstanding job adhering to the reporting requirements outlined in last year's legislation. Additionally, our campuses have been implementing the required responsible employee training. The plan is for all of our campuses to be at 100% completion rates by the start of the fall semester. One of our campuses is close to the 100% completion rate, and that campus is Northwestern State University. And as of yesterday, they are at 97% completion rate. And I just want to add, this is with a new Title IX coordinator that they hired at the start of last fall. Her name is Martissa. And so Martissa has been working very hard to make sure that the campus community is completing the responsible employee training. I appreciate the work that all of our Title IX coordinators have been doing to implement training on their campuses and to educate their campus communities about Title IX and power-based violence. To enhance the Title IX work on the campuses, the legislature is providing funding for all public post-secondary institutions in the state of Louisiana. We are excited about this funding, and I would be remiss if I did not express my gratitude for this money. So we will use some of the money for training, and in the fall, during the fall semester, we plan to have a Title IX summit. And so I will keep you posted about the details for that. Any questions about Title IX, power-based violence? No. Thank you. So moving on to mental health. Mental health continues to be an area of concern on our campuses. Yesterday, I met with our vice presidents of student affairs and our deans of students, and for the most part, all of them are experiencing similar issues with their counseling centers. They're short-staffed, increased number of students needing services. I know during COVID that a lot of them pivoted to telehealth, but now that the students are back on our campuses, they want to have in-person visits with the counselors. So of course, the traffic in our counseling centers have been increasing. So we are working with our campuses to identify ways to mitigate some of these concerns. Additionally, as Dr. Henderson said, there have been a number of suicides among college athletes, and a quote from a media source: "Suicides among college athletes have grieving parents and students calling for NCAA action." This statement alone illustrates how serious this issue is. In that vein, we are providing professional development opportunities in areas of mental health and suicide prevention training with our athletic departments. These trainings will provide personnel in our athletic departments with tools they can use to support their athletes, particularly when it comes to suicide prevention. The first training will be Tuesday, June 28th at 3 o'clock via Zoom. This training, Talk Saves Lives, is a brief introduction to suicide prevention. A special thanks to our mental health content expert, Dr. Kevin Yadis, and our Assistant Vice President for Academic Innovation and Learning, Katie Dawson, for putting together this series of training. We will continue to work with Dr. Yadis to develop specialized training for our athletic departments. That concludes my report on Title IX and mental health. Are there any questions before I proceed to introduce our SGA presidents?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have any statistics about suicides in athletics as opposed to the regular or student population?
I do not have them available now, but I definitely can get that information to you.
And I'm just wondering what is being done about the regular student access to this training?
So What we have within the system, we started this last year. We developed a mental health advisory council. So the mental health advisory council, they get together and they explore opportunities to provide training for employees and to provide support to identify ways to support students. So, and some of my colleagues on the campuses, my counterparts, they did say that they have increased staffing in their counseling centers. The biggest issue is having psychiatrists available to write prescriptions to the students who need medicine, if that makes sense. So they are working to actually contract with some local agencies to have that, that support for those students. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does kind of. If you don't mind, and it may not be your job since I know you're working with the Title IX, but I'd like to know about some of these statistics with our other students as well, not just athletes, to see
Certainly.
if that makes sure that, you know, there are counselings available to them as well.
Yes, ma'am. I'll
Thank you.
get some information to you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Well, this is one of favorite parts of my job. I get to work with a bunch of outstanding students on our campuses, and I feel like it keeps me youthful, regardless what popular opinion might be. So it does give me great pleasure to introduce this outstanding group of students. We have already met a couple of times, and I'm confident that they will be remarkable leaders. So we will start by introducing Jaquel Brooks from Grambling State University. Jaquel is a senior from Shreveport, Louisiana, who is majoring in business management. Jaquel is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. Louisiana Tech's SGA President Elizabeth McKinney is unable to be with us today as she's helping to lead Tech's orientations. Among the many hats that she wears, she is one of Tech's orientation leaders. Elizabeth is from St. Francisville and is a senior majoring in marketing. Elizabeth plans to pursue her MBA at Louisiana Tech, so she must really like Louisiana Tech, huh? Elizabeth has been elected by her peers to serve as the vice chair for the system's Student Advisory Council. Sam Gill, McNeese's SGA president, is also unable to join us today. Sam is currently participating in the Governor's Fellows Program, and this morning he and some of his colleagues are touring GOSEP, which is, of course, an excellent opportunity. Sam is a junior majoring in mass communication with a concentration in public relations and a minor in political science. He is a native of Ville Platte. Nichols SGA president is Tyler Legnon. Tyler is serving a second term as SGA president, so you may be a little familiar with him. He is from Gibson and is a senior majoring in business administration. Tyler is the outgoing president and chapter founder of Alpha Psi Lambda National. Northwestern's SGA president is Bailey Willis. Bailey is a junior from Opelousas, Louisiana, and is majoring in secondary education. Bailey Piku is a senior at Southeastern Louisiana University and majoring in general studies with a minor in marketing. She is from Shreveport. Bailey is also joined by her service dog, Bruno. So Bruno there, yeah, there we go. Bruno is now an honorary member of Student Advisory Council. UL Lafayette's new SGA president is Destiny Broussard. Destiny is a senior and is majoring in human development and family science with a minor in criminal justice. Destiny is a native of Opelousas. Destiny has been elected by her fellow SAC members to the position of SAC Service Learning Coordinator. This next person you're familiar with, he just got sworn in this morning, Supervisor Ethan Estes. He is a senior at University of Louisiana at Monroe, majoring in political science, and is from Rayville. We're excited to have Ethan as our student board member and as part of the Student Advisory Council. And Ethan did bring a group of people with him today. Can I ask them to stand? They came from his institution to support him.
If I may really quickly introduce them just briefly. My Vice President on the left, David Hernandez, my Treasurer, Caleb Underwood, Assistant to the President, Kate Smith, and Marketing Coordinator, Maddie Greep.
Thank you for joining, Ethan. Last but certainly not least, we have Angelo Charles. Angelo is a graduate student at University of New Orleans and majoring in political science. Angelo is from New Orleans and serves as the chair of the System Student Advisory Council. And there are vice presidents in the room who have come with their presidents. Can I ask you to stand? Thank you. We appreciate all of these great leaders. Later today, the SGA presidents will be participating in a professional development session that will provide them with more information about the board and the system. Our immediate past student board member, L'Oreal Williams, will give a presentation about her experiences as a two-time elected SGA president. Additionally, Dr. Gabe Willis, Dean of Students at Southeastern, will talk to the SGA presidents about various aspects of leadership related to their current roles as presidents. I look forward to working with this group of exceptional leaders. Thank you, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, Dr. Calais. Members, yesterday, the presidents and provosts gathered with system staff at the water campus to discuss how we can better serve the maritime industry through new academic program. And the day began with a panel featuring Representative Joe Orgeron, Captain Toby Watney, and Matt Lagarde. They were industry leaders. They set the stage for our discussion, identifying gaps that exist, and our member institutions finished the conversation with ways that we can develop relevant programs for the industry. We have a lot of examples of excellence around this industry in place already, but by bringing them together in a systemic way to talk about opportunities that exist on the other side of the levee, and one of the most important industries in Louisiana is one of the, I think, an effort of significant import for this system. And I appreciate the system staff for being part of that, and Dr. Khan for her leadership and bringing this together. It was an exceptional day. And in the backdrop, as you see tugs pushing 70,000 tons worth of cargo up the river, it provides for a pretty staggering view of the importance of that work. Look forward to some great things from that. Last week, the system hosted its second annual Black Male Summit at the University of Louisiana at Monroe. The event welcomed more than 300 attendees, including nearly 100 students. The two-day conference featured 2 keynote speakers and several breakout sessions. The event culminated with the introduction and the pinning of the second cohort of Reginald F. Lewis scholars. Dr. Claire Norris is here to share more about the summit and our new scholars, as well as the broader diversity and inclusion data report.
Thanks,
Claire.
Dr. Henderson. I'm excited to report to you that our second annual Black Male Summit was a huge success. We had a day and a half of powerful keynote speakers and panelists, informative breakout sessions that provoked courageous conversations. And as Dr. Henderson mentioned, we unveiled our second cohort of Reginald F. Lewis scholars. The summit was the result of 2 visionary leaders, Dr. Kedrick Nicholas and Gabe Willis, who wanted a space to address systemic barriers and create new opportunities for our Black male students, faculty, and staff. As we embarked on this work, we quickly realized that we could not do it in a vacuum. We needed business and community partners to stand with us in this journey. We didn't anticipate the amount of support that we would have received from our business community. The investments that our business partners have made to our scholars and to the summit was absolutely overwhelming. Beyond the monetary donations, our scholars have received professional development opportunities, mentorship, social and personal support. The partnership between business and our higher ed communities has been critical in developing our future pipeline of diverse and talented leaders. I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank some of our partners, Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady of Health System, Verizon, Care South, Baton Rouge General, Jackson Offshore, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Coursera, Aramark, Sodexo, Chartwells, and more recently, the Baptist Community Ministries. This work could not have been possible without these wonderful partners. I wanted to take a moment to just back up and talk about our overall DEI work and share a little bit of data with you. For the past few years, every June, we've brought our diversity, equity, and inclusion report before the board. And I can tell you each year, I am increasingly more proud of the work that we are bringing to you. We use this report as an opportunity to update the board of our progress, celebrate our victories, and reflect on our future opportunities. This work all started with a goal of producing the most educated generation, which we all know cannot be achieved without ensuring that all populations have access to all equal opportunity, and us closing the opportunity and achievement gaps. I wanted to remind the board and also update the board of just some of the work that we're doing to address the equity gaps. You may remember that the UL system envisioned having a statewide support system for our chief diversity officers. We connected with NADAHE, the National Association for Diversity Officers in Higher Education, and we created a statewide support system for our CDOs, LADAHE. We also have an advisory board, the Black Male Advisory Board, where we're working with faculty, staff, and students across the system to ensure equitable outcomes for our Black male faculty, staff, and students. You guys obviously know about the Reginald F. Lewis Educational Equity Initiative, as well as our Scholars Program. I promised Ms. Donahoe that I'd talk a little bit about the program, but I will only talk a little bit about the program because in August, we will be bringing all of our scholars here to meet you guys during the retreat. But I can tell you guys, this has been the most rewarding work, I think, not only for me, but my colleagues. And I believe that our scholars we are changing lives indeed. And so I thank you guys for your support, for attending the summit, supporting us in the way you have. We really do appreciate it. We have our Compete Louisiana program, our Management and Leadership Institute. We've done strategic planning with our chief diversity officers. We've also worked with folks on our campus to talk about key performance indicators to make sure we are closing those opportunity and achievement gaps. Our campus climate surveys were revised to ensure that we are measuring things like indicators like belonging, inclusion, making sure our students feel that they're a part of this system. We have champions of diversity on every campus, and we rolled out our Future of Academe initiative for our future conference. The idea is to ensure that we are working towards making sure our faculty and staff represent the students that they serve. So with that, and I apologize that the numbers are small, but they are certainly exciting, so stay tuned here. I wanted to give you a high-level view of our systems, employees, and demographics. The charts at the top reflects employees by race and gender. The charts at the bottom reflect the top management teams by demographics. We operationalize top management teams by the positions that are approved by you, the board. That's vice presidents, presidents, and athletic directors. I wanted to draw your attention to the progress you've made as a board. We got intentional and the results are clear. We are seeing more diversity among our top management teams. I'd like to draw your attention to African American or Black employees in the top management team from 2017 to 22. You are seeing a definite increase in representation, but you're also seeing some of those changes as well as in gender. And so this is exciting news. All of those efforts that we have shared with you as a board, we are starting to see that change over time. Again, looking at the top management team, that's positions that you guys approve as a board. So this is exciting results, and we will continue to bring our results to you. And we also want to thank you guys as a board for the work that you're doing and putting this diversity work at the forefront. Any questions? Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
No, I just want to make an appointment with you afterwards to sit down and talk KPIs.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions?
Members, when I spoke in Monroe to close out the session, I made mention of a leadership concept that if you want to be an effective leader, you surround yourself with great leaders who make you a better leader. And when you can also have in those same people of poise and character and morality that make you want to be a better person, you're working in a pretty special team. Claire Norris is a perfect example of that. And Claire, these numbers here are a product of your leadership, your tireless leadership. And I just appreciate your work. It matters.
Thanks. Sir.
By the way, we do have at least one scholar in the room. Just one scholar?
We do. I was going to hold off.
But it's okay. Ebenezer Agri, if you don't mind, he already stood once, but since he's also a vice president of SGA, Eb was the first recipient of the James Carter Exemplary Leadership Award that will go to one of the scholars at the end of their first year of their experience. And Eb is a model of what exemplary leadership should look like.
I certainly couldn't think of anyone more deserving. You know, when we think about leadership, it's the things that you do when no one's looking. And, you know, we've worked with these scholars for over a year now. There have been many times that Eb has sat with scholars who maybe everyone wasn't sitting with. He offers help every time. Anytime I put out a message to the group saying we need Eb is absolutely the first to stand up. I couldn't think of anyone more deserving of that award.
Congrats, Eb. By the way, since I mentioned James Carter, I guess I will mention those of you that watched the closing bell of the NASDAQ, you might have seen a familiar face ringing that bell yesterday. That was James Carter. So that was probably the second most significant thing to happen to him after attending the meeting last week. So congratulations to him. Immediately following today's meeting, you'll head to the third floor of the Claiborne building to enjoy lunch and presentations by the fifth cohort of our University of Louisiana Management and Leadership Institute that's under the leadership of Caprice Ayub. A lot of effort has gone on these capstone projects. They finished their rehearsals last night and then came to my house for a little bit of food and then a little bit of wine, but most of them seem like they're awake. As this group finishes its work, we're excited to welcome a new class to the Institute. On your screen is the sixth class of the Management Leadership Institute. This group will kick off its 9-month journey around the state in August at UL Lafayette. And we're excited to welcome these new participants to this group. The reading list will change. Charity from Southeastern loved the Lincoln book and asked that we never let anyone else read it. So the reading is rigorous. So congratulations to you guys and congratulations to our new class. I did one quick update on the opioid settlement. We met in executive session last month. Executive session I do not believe is necessary this month, but we talked to you about the settlement that will likely be finalized in July that will go to municipalities. And we committed to working with our council to provide a boilerplate, if you will, for our campuses to work with their local communities and ensuring that some of those resources can address the specific needs on our campuses. That work continues. Brandon and I spoke at length about it yesterday, and we'll work with our campuses as that money starts to go out. I believe that the settlement will be finalized towards the end of July. And if you'll nod, Brandon, thank you for that. And we'll continue to keep the board updated with that. But we have received some very positive feedback from both the local and state levels. Nothing that is tangible enough to talk about at length, but we'll continue that work. And be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any on that. Good. Thank you for that. And lastly, I mentioned earlier, started with a recognition of a 50th anniversary, and this is a little bit of a personal one. Last week was the 50th anniversary of two young journalists, well, one young journalist, one older journalist, named Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, who, investigating a burglary, uncovered a sinister national level abuse of power called Watergate. I mention that to you because today we have student journalists across our universities that continue to do remarkable work. I have personal interest in student journalists. I think student journalism is one of the most vital aspects of our institutional lives. I want to just encourage those students to continue their study, continue their work, because journalism today is more important than it's ever been in our history. And I thought this was an appropriate time to do that. But Madam Chair, that completes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. I want to start by thanking Mr. Bruce Janae for arranging our live ethics training this morning. Along with fulfilling our annual requirement, this was a good opportunity to gain more understanding and to have some of our questions answered. So thank you so much for that. On the For Our Future Awards, just a reminder that if you have any pending For Our Future award scholarship applications, or if you have any questions about those applications, please reach out to Ms. Ann McKisson. She can help with that. Also, Ms. Carroll wants to advise you that included in the back of your blue folders are copies of the updated standing committees and updated board contact sheet. Please keep those for your use. Also, our next meeting will be on August 25th in Baton Rouge, here in Baton Rouge. I think with that being said, is there any further business to come before the board at this time? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn? Move and second. Any objection? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much. Board members, we will now move to the Rapides room on the third floor of this building for lunch and the ML&I presentation.